Janie decides to launch a GoFundMe to help finance a private search effort for her son. It has an oddly lofty goal, $75,000.
$75,000? I don't think you need 75 bands for all that. YouTube, what's good? Today we're gonna be looking at the horrors of GoFundMe. Most GoFundMes are probably scams, I can't lie. If that counts as a horror, most people be like, oh, I have cancer, donate to me. And then they don't have cancer, and then they just steal like 70 grand. Horrors on GoFundMe. Dallas,
It was a warm
Texas.
October evening in Dallas, Texas. Couple Jennifer and Jamie Faith are out celebrating their 8th wedding anniversary. The pair reminisce about how they originally met on a blind date 15 years prior.
A blind date? Motherfuckers meet on a blind date and generally get married, bro. I thought blind dates were like trolls and jokes and like clip farming, bro. No way motherfuckers actually do blind dates genuinely. That's crazy to me.
Back in those days, they were both living in Phoenix, Arizona. Jamie was a technology director for American Airlines, and Jennifer was a speech pathologist. According to their friends, they had bonded fairly quickly over their shared interests, and soon enough, the couple were inseparable.
See, overly
They'd
serious,
eloped 7 years later
scary.
in Las Vegas in 2012.
Oh, let me know on
They
gambling!
relocated to Dallas after Jamie earned a big promotion. And 3 years after that, they're sitting at dinner reliving all the memories. They joke about the love book that Jennifer had made for Valentine's Day a few months prior, one that thanked Jamie for the wonderful life he had given her. Before they knew it, their special day was over, and the next one would launch them right back into their usual routine. They'd wake up early, and at approximately 7:35, they'd take their dog Maggie out for a walk. The couple considered this to be their bonding time. It was how they started their mornings, with this one being yet another perfect duplicate of countless before it. Or at least, that's how it started.
What that's supposed to mean, bro? 8 a.m.
By 8 a.m., police are rushing to the Oak Cliff neighborhood. They stop outside the Faith's family home, where they're greeted with a bizarre scene.
What?
From inside the cruiser, they can already hear hysterical screaming. Once they exit, they see a dog running around wildly in the street. Then they turn to the driveway towards the source of the screams.
I'm gonna take a guess right now. The dog ate them on some weird shit. Actually, no, it's GoFundMe.
There, they find a woman lying on the ground, all bound up in duct tape.
What?
Jennifer.
I don't can't do that.
Her in the street. There's a man lying face down. It's Jamie, and he's not moving. The police call over an ambulance, but the paramedics pronounce him dead on the spot.
What?
He's been shot several times.
Yo, a dog can't shoot people and tie up people, bro. That was not the dog. What are they going for? GoFundMe to buy more duct tape. What the f could this GoFundMe be for?
When Jennifer finally calmed down enough to speak, she told investigators that a masked man had ambushed the couple just moments after they left their house.
Why?
He immediately raised a gun and shot Jamie at point blank before knocking her over and binding her hands with duct tape. He apparently tried to snatch her necklace, but fled before he could rip it off once Jennifer started screaming. Considering this was during COVID, somebody wearing a face mask unfortunately wasn't much of an identifying feature, and Jennifer couldn't offer much of a physical description past labeling her attacker as medium built and having black eyes. Over the following days, Jennifer could be seen on TV giving tearful interviews, pleading for people to come forward if they had any information about her husband's murderer.
If I put myself in her shoes, I don't know if I'd be going on TV like the next day. I don't know if I'd be doing that, dog.
It was a tragic story, and people felt genuinely awful for the new widow.
That's awful.
One local who had been particularly touched by the heart-wrenching story had an idea as to how she could help make things a little better. She logged onto a website called GoFundMe.com, a crowdfunding platform. You can use this website to collect donations in support of pretty much anything. While many GoFundMe campaigns are centered around financing some new product or creative project, many of them are also launched to support individuals in times of need. And that's exactly what this community member had in mind when she set up a GoFundMe campaign to support Jennifer. It wouldn't take long for the fundraiser to spread around, and within a few weeks, it had raised just over $60,000.
Damn! In a few weeks? In a few weeks, 60 bands? You know, fair enough, though.
The campaign was set up under the funerals and memorials section, and the money was raised with the intentions of helping to pay for funeral expenses and to help Jennifer get back on her feet, as Jamie had been the sole provider for their family at the time of his death. The widow eventually withdrew $58,000 from the campaign.
Damn!
And it's here where things get strange.
Why?
While she would organize a funeral for her husband, she'd end up leaving the more than $6,000 bill for it unpaid, despite having 10 times that amount in her savings just from the GoFundMe alone. What exactly was she planning on using the money for? Well, it wouldn't take long for investigators to start raising their eyebrows after seeing how Jen was spending her donations. She had bought an expensive large-screen TV, but not for herself. No, she had it shipped to an address in Tennessee.
What? Shut up! Oh my god, no. There's no way that she's living a double life. Oh my god, bro. And she has a whole nother family in Tennessee.
She also took out 2 new credit cards, both of which she also mailed to the same Tennessee address. Finally, she started sending numerous Venmo transfers to a man named Darren Lopez. The police would start learning whatever they could about this man. He was a US Army veteran, one who had fought in Iraq. He had been medically discharged after suffering a traumatic brain injury from a roadside bomb, which would also lead to him developing PTSD. He divorced his wife in 2018 and began living an isolated life in rural Tennessee. The authorities would discover that Darren had indeed known Jennifer. In fact, they had been high school sweethearts. This was a suspicious connection, and it only grew more so the closer investigators looked. One detail noted by witnesses at the crime scene was a Nissan Titan that had sped out of the neighborhood shortly after gunshots were heard. It had a large T decal printed on it.
Do y'all reckon this Darren guy killed her husband so they could be together and they could like Sag farm all the money and shit? I reckon that's what's happened here. The masked man is the Darren dude.
The police would manage to get their hands on some aerial surveillance photos of Darren's property, and sure enough, a Nissan Titan sporting a T was parked right next to his house. In January 2021, they'd arrest Darren, with investigators even finding the murder weapon stained with Jamie's blood in his house, along with the credit cards and TV that
Did they say with his blood still? He didn't even think to clean it?
Jennifer had bought. It was damning evidence, but the case only expanded once they searched through his phone. In March 2020, just 1 month after Jennifer had made her husband a love book thanking him for the wonderful life they shared, she would reconnect with Darren over the internet. Her former boyfriend had made his first ever social media profile specifically with the intention of reconnecting with her.
Why?
They began texting, which eventually escalated to over 500 messages sent per day between the pair.
Yo, bro, if a girl texts me like too much, bro, I'm actually out of there. 500 times? Yo, if a girl texts me 500 times, bro, like holy I'm good off that shit, bro.
Well, on the surface, everything seemed fine between Jennifer and her husband. She'd start telling Darren that behind the scenes, he had been mistreating her. She'd tell him horrible details of the supposed turmoil she suffered at the hands of her husband.
Like
absolutely wild allegations that I can't even bring up on YouTube. Just trust me when I say it's probably worse than you're expecting. While Darren had once said he saw Jamie as a good guy, his perception would quickly shift as Jennifer continued venting to him. Things would get worse when Jamie supposedly sent the ex-lover a threatening email, complete with explicit photos of Jennifer's injuries. Soon after, Jamie would begin texting Darren similarly threatening messages on a regular basis. By October 2020, Jennifer told Darren that she began to believe her life was in danger. She'd float the idea of shooting her husband, a proposition that Darren enthusiastically accepted. He'd drive 650 miles down to Dallas and would lay in wait outside the couple's house all night, eventually getting up and pulling out his gun once he saw Jennifer and Jamie walking out the front door with their dog early in the morning.
Turns out old mate was not a good person, bro. Sure, bro. I'd arguably say fairs, I can't lie.
In February 2021, Jennifer would also be arrested. First for obstruction of justice after police found a text message instructing Darren to remove the decal from his car, but a few months later, she'd be indicted on interstate commission for murder for hire, a much more serious federal charge that could potentially expose her to the death penalty. She'd eventually agree to a plea deal that sentenced her to life in prison. Shockingly, during her plea hearing, she would admit that all the stories she told Lopez about the stomach-churning mistreatment she suffered at the hands of her husband were completely made up.
What? Why would you lie about that, bro? If you don't want to be with him, just Divorce him, bro. Surely getting a divorce is much easier than LARPing being,
She had even made fake accounts impersonating him and used them to send those threatening messages with the photos of her injuries being random pictures she found on the internet.
What?
The story had now turned from a pair of star-crossed lovers who would kill to be with each other to a woman who had spent months deceiving and emotionally manipulating a disabled veteran suffering from PTSD into becoming a murderer. The judge who ruled over her case would describe her as, quote,
pure evil.
Facts. I agree.
Lopez would be sentenced to 62 years in prison, being eligible for parole after 30. Jennifer, on the other hand, will almost certainly spend the rest of her days behind bars in federal prison.
W's! Love that. Yeah, go f yourself, bro.
Her GoFundMe campaign would be taken down after her arrest, with her donors surely disgusted with the fact that they willingly handed over their hard-earned money to such a morally bankrupt criminal. Luckily, they were able to request a refund, with GoFundMe generously eating the costs themselves, considering Jennifer had already run off with most of the money.
Damn,
We don't know all the details of what happened to the funds raised in her campaign. We do know one thing. Jennifer Faith is one of the most evil individuals to ever collect donations on GoFundMe.
Yeah.
The keywords there being one of. Everybody knows that crowdfunding platforms are rife with scams and deceitful campaigns of all kinds. After all, anybody can set up a GoFundMe page for just about anything within the terms and conditions. With it being possible to translate people's emotional investment into actual cash, it's not terribly surprising for these platforms to attract plenty of conmen.
This better not lead into a sponsor, bro. I'm actually gonna be so mad.
But things get much more disturbing when you get into the darker side of internet crowdfunding crimes. Jennifer's story is unfortunately not a unique one. In fact, her criminal profile almost perfectly matches that of her cruel peers who also had GoFundMe campaigns. They rely on emotional manipulation to do horrible things to others, and also to elicit sympathy from unsuspecting members of their communities.
This is dead like the bottom of the barrel, like humanity, bro. How do you do this shit and wake up in the morning and like be okay with it, dead?
This is a very deceitful brand of criminal, and the stories about disturbing GoFundMe campaigns have a bit of a depressing and enraging edge to them. Especially this next one.
What is it?
Once again, our story starts with somebody leaving home to walk the dog. In this case, it's Rudy Farias. He's a 17-year-old living in Houston, Texas, and he yells out to his mom, Janie, to let her know he's leaving. 20 minutes passes, and Rudy should be walking through that front door any minute. But he doesn't. An hour passes, and then several more, but still,
Where'd he go?
Rudy doesn't return. The single mom begins to worry. Eventually, someone does show up at the front door. But it's not Rudy. It's one of the two family dogs he had taken out. It apparently found its way home on its own.
Okay.
The next morning, Janie files a missing persons report with the police. A nonprofit known as EcuSearch offers to help, and they begin distributing flyers around the local area. They describe Rudy as having a slight limp from an injured leg, and also suffering from a couple mental health problems like anxiety and depression. 2 weeks pass, and still, nobody can find Rudy. It's as if he vanished into thin air. Janie decides to launch a GoFundMe to help finance a private search effort for her son. It has an oddly lofty goal, $75,000.
$75,000? I don't think you need 75 bands for all that. I don't think 75 bands is necessary. I don't know how much is necessary. I don't know. But I don't think 75 bands is necessary. I think that's a bit much, in my humble opinion, though.
Despite the flyers describing Rudy as merely having a minor injury and some common mental health issues, this page describes him as suffering from physical and mental disabilities. She'd then go on to do several media interviews where she tells the public her son is non-verbal and is unable to communicate with others.
So then why would you send him out on his own if he's not able to do that? Unless you are preying on his downfall, which is probably happening and is my prediction, if the disability stuff is true. And now she's trying to profit off him, bro. Actually, what a piece of shit.
Weeks would turn to months, and months would turn to years. The GoFundMe would slowly rake in more money. But still, there was no sign of Rudy. As others lost hope, his mom Janie remained adamant that he was out there somewhere. And indeed, some signs would eventually pop up that appeared to bolster her resolve. In September 2018, a couple family members contacted the police to tell them that they had spotted Rudy behind a relative's property.
What?
Officers searched the location, but unfortunately couldn't find any evidence that anybody had been there. Still though, this could be a reason to be hopeful, and with time, only more would come along. Neighbors would begin sporadically coming forward with reports that they had seen Rudy around the neighborhood, But when the police came to look, they could never actually find any sign of him. It was as if he was a specter haunting the street he vanished on. That's not how Janie saw it though. She seemed to remain hopeful that her son was still out there waiting to be found, as she continued to collect money on GoFundMe to help keep the search effort going. This is more or less how things would play out for the following few years, at least until 2023. In June of that year, the police would receive a 911 call reporting an unresponsive man found lying on the ground outside a church in southeast Houston.
No way, this is him, bro. 5 years, bro? Where the f did he go?
They rush over, and sure enough, they discover an unconscious man covered in cuts and bruises. They took note of the necklace he was wearing. It looked familiar.
What was it?
Where had they seen it before? It wouldn't take them long to figure out where it came from. The man was quickly identified as none other than Rudy Farias.
What?
The police call his mom and she
How did he end up there, bro?
rushes over to the scene, elated to finally see her son again after 8 years. An ambulance is called and emergency responders begin evaluating the formerly missing man. But this is where things get weird. Janie starts acting strangely when the ambulance arrives.
What happens?
She tells the police that she doesn't want her son to be taken to the hospital, and she takes him home herself.
Why?
News breaks out of Rudy's return, and Janie describes the event as a miracle. A nonverbal, vulnerable boy turned adult survived on his own for 8 years and then found his way back home to his family. While Janie put on a celebratory face, others were a little skeptical of the whole situation. The police begin questioning neighbors more closely. The reports of Rudy having been around the neighborhood weren't just random Bigfoot-esque sightings. Some of them had even interacted with him.
What?
One of them told the police that Rudy regularly visited their house to spend time with their children.
What?
Stating, quote,
That boy has never been missing.
Oh, so she just lost that sh**. She lied about it. He was chilling the whole time.
the more they dug, the worse the situation began to appear. They found that Janie had had several run-ins with the police where she had been with a young adult that physically resembled Rudy. The man would identify himself by a different name each time, and Janie would tell the officers that he was her nephew. In reality though, it had been Rudy all along.
What?
His mom had coached him to misidentify himself to officers, telling him that if he didn't, he would be arrested and thrown in jail.
What?
Police and other organizations would scramble to arrange interviews with Rudy after his return, and to their surprise, he wasn't nonverbal. He had no problems whatsoever speaking with them.
So she lied about him being missing and lied about him having disability. Madness, bro. All that for 75 bands. For 75 bands, bro? For 75 bands. Only 75 bands? Like, come on, bro.
One of the first people to interview Rudy was Quanol X, a civil rights activist and leader of the new Black Panther Party. Shortly after they finished speaking, he'd end up having to report what he heard to the police. He alleged that the missing man had disclosed some very disturbing details about his life during his disappearance, stating that Janie had allegedly drugged him on multiple occasions and coerced him to quote-unquote play daddy.
What? To your own son? That's your blood shit. He came out of you, bro. You mean played? This is wild, bro. I'm actually speechless, bro. I'm in shock right now.
That's about all I can say on YouTube. I'll leave the rest to your imagination. Quanol X is a controversial figure, with some in his community even going as far as to label him an outright fraud, so it's important to take these allegations with a healthy dose of skepticism. When Rudy spoke with the police directly, he wouldn't mention any of the details put forth by Quanol X.
What'd he say?
What he would tell them is that he had actually returned home on March 8th, 2015, less than 24 hours after he had left to walk the dogs. His mom had already reported him as missing, but she failed to inform the police of her son's return. She'd only worked to keep the lie going, and began to hide Rudy from the world, manipulating the young adult by telling him he'd be arrested by the police if he were to ever come forward. She'd been exaggerating the details of her son's mental and physical illness to the public, with a shy teenager turning into a vulnerable, nonverbal adult within the span of just a few weeks. A month after his return, Rudy would give his first public interview with the media. He'd state that his mom had brainwashed him, and he essentially remained confined to their family home for the majority of his 8 years missing. He denied the serious allegations put forth by Quanol X, but would state that Janie did sometimes make him sleep in her bed with her, alleging that she regularly crossed personal boundaries with him.
What?
He'd state that she'd make him help her with her day job, forcing him to work for up to 12 hours at a time, and only paid him $60 a day for doing so.
$60 a day for 12 hours? That's like $5 an hour.
Shockingly, Janie would never be charged with a crime here, despite having maintained a false police report and given multiple false identities to the police. The authorities would close this out by stating, it's not a crime to be missing, and that Rudy was a legal adult for the vast majority of his time in captivity. In terms of motivation, many people do believe that Janie had hoped to financially profit from the GoFundMe campaign she had started, which was likely why the funding goal was so unusually high for the circumstances. She would end up making a few $1,000s from it, but GoFundMe would take down her campaign and even permanently banned her from the platform after news broke out of Rudy's return. Let's be clear though, finances are just one aspect of this case. The bigger overall picture points to a pattern of abuse that escalated into a mother manipulating her son to be her prisoner. You might think it's strange that police didn't lay any charges here, but that decision would have ultimately been left to Rudy.
Bro, surely they could put her on like charges, no? Like, what do you mean play daddy, bro? I'm still tripping over that. Wild. Like, what the is that supposed to mean? I don't think I want to know what that means, bro.
It's possible he might have just wanted to leave this whole situation behind him. The last we've heard, Rudy has cut off all contact with his mother and just wants to live a normal life. While we're likely never going to learn the full details of this case, I do think we can say one thing. Janie didn't just manipulate her son, but she attempted to deceive the public as well, falsely stating that Rudy was missing and lying about his mental and physical health in order to elicit donations on her GoFundMe campaign. In fact, this wasn't even the only campaign that Janie had set up for her son. Before he even disappeared, she had supposedly set up a different campaign, one where she alleged that Rudy was suffering from cancer and needed money for his treatment. Supposedly that one was deleted right before Janie made the page to fund Rudy's search effort.
Then how did no one bring up the cancer one in the first place, or like bring some suspicion towards using that, no? Like, you'd think that like you'd see that and well, he obviously doesn't have cancer, be like, okay, like what the f is this supposed to mean now?
Financial gain from crowdfunding is an aspect that ties both of the cases we've looked at today, but there are other ways criminals can make use of GoFundMe.
How?
Herbert Sweely and Timothy Smith were a popular and well-liked couple. Living in Ocala, Florida, they were quite active in their local gay community, with 59-year-old Timothy in particular being known as somewhat of a social staple in community events. He was the executive director of Brookdale Schombrel Pine Castle, an assisted living and memory care community. In his spare time, he was a local activist, being involved with Ocala's Walk to End Alzheimer's, Marion County's Continuity of Care, and the annual Festival of Trees. Friends described him as warm and outgoing, never failing to be the life of the party. They say opposites attract, and that can be easily seen by looking at Timothy's husband Herbert, who he'd been married to for 8 years. He was a 55-year-old handyman who tended to mostly take on odd jobs here and there. Friends described him as cold and rough, stating that he was an unusually unemotional person. He had an adult daughter from a previous relationship, and the three all lived together in Ocala. Timothy, though, had a second residence, an apartment. You see, the couple had an open relationship, and they'd used this residence for intimate encounters with other men that they'd meet on social media.
Open relationship? Really? Well, be genuinely having open relationships, bro? I thought that was like a meme, bro. I didn't think people actually did open relationships, bro. That's crazy. There's no actual way. Thing is, if you have an open relationship, bro, what if you start loving another person more than the person that you were with initially? Open relationship is just asking you to be a bro.
This was a secretive aspect of their life, and we only even know about the second apartment because of what would eventually be discovered there. In March 2023, Timothy would fail to show up for work, which would prompt Herbert to call 911. After a short investigation, police would discover Timothy's second apartment and manage to borrow a key from his landlord. They'd head over to the building and make their way up to the door of the unit, cautiously opening it and going inside. There, they'd find Timothy Smith, all sprawled out on the floor.
What the?
He had clear physical trauma to his face and neck, and detectives noticed a strong smell of chemical cleaning fluids as well.
Ew.
It was obvious he was dead. Herbert would appear to be publicly devastated by the news. He'd make a tearful Facebook post and would launch a GoFundMe campaign to gather donations to fund a celebration of life.
I'm gonna make a guess right now. I'm gonna say Tim started seeing another bloke a lot. Well, they're in an open relationship, right? So like that shouldn't be an issue, right? Right? But then Herbert got jealous and yeah, you know, and then got stinky from there, bro.
From an outside perspective, it seemed like Herbert was a heartbroken husband suffering from the immense grief that comes along with the loss of a partner.
That would be
But behind the scenes, police were forming a bit of a different opinion. A family friend would report that they saw Herbert disposing of many of Timothy's belongings in the days following his death, including clothes and framed family photos. They also told police they overheard Herbert complaining that he had to hurry to clean Timothy's car before investigators could get to it.
What?
In the same week he launched a GoFundMe campaign, police would officially label Herbert as a suspect in his husband's death. They'd start to request follow-up interviews, but the 55-year-old was uncooperative, indicating that he would only speak further if granted total immunity in the case, something the police obviously weren't planning to offer him.
Yo, you think like that should be like mad suspicious saying that shit, no?
In August, they'd publicly name him as a suspect, and he'd eventually be charged with first-degree murder a few months later in November.
How'd they get him?
It'd take 2 years for him to stand trial, but when he finally did in September 2025, we'd learn the whole story for the first time. You see, Herbert and Timothy had been having some problems in their marriage. Timothy had been pulling away from his husband, even going as far as to pursue job opportunities in other cities. This greatly spooked Herbert, who almost fully relied on his partner to fund their luxurious lifestyle. Timothy did, however, carry life insurance, and Herbert stood to gain more than $300,000 if he were to suddenly pass away. And on March 23, 2023, he took matters into his own hands.
300 bands is a lot, bro, but I wouldn't slime him out for 300 bands.
He gave Timothy a massive dose of Benadryl, an entire bottle, and proceeded to strangle him as he was dozing off from the medication. He then took his body to the second apartment and staged a scene to make it look like an intimate encounter gone wrong with some anonymous partner from the internet. From there, he tried his best to play the part of the grieving husband. He made sad social media posts, vented to friends and family, and even set up a GoFundMe campaign to fund a funeral, one that he never actually withdrew the funds out of.
300 bands won't even buy a one-bed apartment, no, actually, bro. 300 bands, what are you gonna do with 300 bands these days, bro? Like, what can you realistically do with 300 bands these days, bro? You can't even get a crib anymore. You can get, like, a car and some food, I guess. I don't know, bro. This economy's fried.
This fundraiser was simply a piece of a cover story, but one that failed to do its job after police actually began digging into the details of this case. Herbert Sweatley was sentenced to life after a brief trial. He's currently in the Florida prison system, and he'll never have the possibility of parole. Like I said earlier, GoFundMe is a place where people can convert public sympathy into cold hard cash. And one could argue that it plays an important role in a country like the USA, where it's normal for people to get saddled with hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars of bills after experiencing some unforeseen medical emergency. It's become a crutch in a flawed system, one that's helped countless people get through the hardest parts of their lives. But it's also one that can be turned on its head to allow criminals to produce money from their crimes in a way they never would have previously been able to before the internet.
Main points of the video: don't trust anyone on GoFundMe, bro. If you see someone doing a GoFundMe, don't trust that shit, dead ass, bro. If one of my friends like, yo, I'm gonna start a GoFundMe, I tell him to go fuck himself, bro. YouTube, let me know what you think of the video. We live every day, link in the description. Come join the Discord, link in description as well. That's poppin'. Love y'all, DSN, and peace.